My fiancé heard that pregnancy could alleviate dysmenorrhea, so on our wedding day, he eloped with his first love to undergo artificial insemination. Before leaving, he advised me, "Be magnanimous, we can always get married later, but Celine's dysmenorrhea is getting worse and could even be life-threatening." He left without looking back, leaving me alone to be mocked by the entire hall of guests. I turned around and took his brother's hand, and we got married smoothly. 3 years later, he returned to the country and offered me, "For the sake of you taking care of my parents, I can also have a child with you. When shall we go to register our marriage?" I waved my hand while holding my daughter. "Your sister-in-law has just finished her postpartum period," I politely decline. "Today is my wedding with Ryan." The luxurious banquet hall is filled with distinguished guests, and the MC is reciting the opening words of the oath ceremony. Ryan looks around distractedly. "Groom, do you wish to take Miss Nina as your wife?" Ryan's phone suddenly rings. He eagerly answers it. Secretary Celine's coquettish voice spreads throughout the venue through the microphone. "Brother Ryan, I'm sorry. I was supposed to attend your wedding with Sister Nina, but I'm in so much pain, ugh." Ignoring the astonished expressions of the guests, Ryan anxiously asks, "Celine, did your period come early?" Celine replies weakly, "It's okay, I wish you happiness, Brother Ryan. I can take care of myself." Ryan frowns with concern, "Wait for me, I'll take you to the hospital right away." After hanging up the phone, he directly announces to everyone that the wedding is paused. Accustomed to such situations, I force a smile and say, "I'll arrange for someone to pick up and drop off Miss Celine. You can leave after the wedding ceremony, don't keep so many guests waiting." Ryan is immediately ignited by my words, glaring at me irritably. "Nina, you usually look down on Celine, but as a woman, can't you have some sympathy?" He shakes off my hand and prepares to leave. Charles blocks Ryan with a livid face, "You unfilial son, stop right there." Ryan throws out, "I'll discipline myself according to family rules," and turns to leave. Whispers arise from the audience. "Miss Nina is so pitiful, her parents passed away recently, and on her wedding day, her husband abandons her for another woman. Who told her to insist on this marriage? Originally, at the engagement party, Ethan stood her up. The Jiang family's stock price will look bad tomorrow." Fortunately, the wedding company quickly organized some small games to divert the guests' attention. Not long after, I checked Celine's Facebook. She posted 2 pictures with the caption, "The one who loves you will always rush to see you, no matter the hardships." One picture shows Ryan's hand gently massaging her lower abdomen. The other is 2 flight tickets to the United States and a brochure from a medical institution. I recognize it as the world's top artificial insemination institution. My call to Ryan is rejected. I have to call Celine instead, urging Ryan to come back quickly. "Sorry, Sister Nina, Brother Ryan insists on taking me abroad for treatment, I really couldn't persuade him." Her tone rises at the end, unable to hide her excitement. I rub my forehead in pain. Does he know there are still hundreds of people waiting here? Ryan grabs the phone and says disdainfully, "Be magnanimous, Nina, we can always get married later, but Celine's dysmenorrhea is getting worse and could even be life-threatening. The doctor says pregnancy can alleviate it, I'll come back once she's better." Celine isn't sick at all. But I still say kindly, "I've invested $30 million in the research center, a special painkiller will be on the market soon. There's no need to go through all this trouble to go abroad." Ryan sneers, "You're not afraid that Celine will get pregnant with my child, are you? She and I are completely innocent." I feel like I've heard the biggest joke ever. Ryan, who once vowed to marry no one but me, has gradually changed since Celine appeared. Her monthly period makes Ryan extremely anxious. While I was drinking to the point of gastric bleeding for social engagements, he was boiling brown sugar water for Celine. At the engagement party, he went out to find a doctor for Celine and only attended online in the end. Ryan, who could even remember the wrong date for my parents' burial, knows Celine's menstrual cycle by heart. Every single thing is not innocent. I say to Ryan, "If you don't come back now, let's not get married." He snorts contemptuously, "I hate it when people threaten me." Ryan hangs up without hesitation, clearly not taking my words to heart. Grace, who heard the entire conversation, is disappointed. This kid is not as worry-free as his brother. From now on, I'll consider him dead. My parents' unexpected death caused turmoil in the group, and I urgently need to stabilize the situation through marriage. But Ryan chooses to elope at this critical moment. A man in an elegant suit walks into the room. Ryan's older brother, Ethan, is handsome and tall, with every gesture exuding a strong sense of authority. He asks, "How is it?" I shake my head. Charles sighs deeply. "Nina, the Fu family has let you down." I clench my fists. "Actually, there's another way to save face for both our families." The three of them look at me curiously. I recall that every time I was alone with Ethan, his deep eyes would gaze at me without wavering. I brace myself and say, "Actually, as long as there's a groom, it doesn't matter who it is." Grace slaps her thigh. "I always thought you and Ethan were more suitable. It's all because of that unfortunate Ryan who insisted on interfering." Charles ponders for a moment and agrees. "Ethan is mature and reserved. Nina will definitely not be wronged." Ethan does not object. That evening, when the new couple walked hand in hand into the hall, he held my hand tightly. He firmly and steadily promised me the I do that Ryan never uttered. After the wedding, the portrait photos were not yet edited. I first posted the wedding scene photos with the character for double happiness on Facebook. It was clearly a festive scene, but Ryan misunderstood that I was playing the victim. He angrily commented 3 times in a row. "Nina, what do you mean by posting these photos?" Celine almost cried out of guilt after seeing them. "Who are you trying to pity by pretending to be an abandoned woman? Don't think I don't know, you just want to gain my sympathy. If you keep pretending not to see, believe me, I'll completely call off the wedding. Delete them quickly." I was annoyed by the screen full of text. To completely draw a line with Ryan, I privately messaged him, warning, "Celine is nothing, she's not worthy of commenting on my Facebook. I'm already married, and the groom is your brother. Show some respect to me from now on." Ryan clearly didn't believe it. "Even if you're lying, you should make a draft first. My brother is not interested in women, let alone with you. Provocation doesn't work on me. If you don't behave, the wedding will be postponed for a year." I directly sent him a screenshot of the news. Ryan was silent for a while. "You really went all out, even getting the media of the entire city to cooperate with your act." Ethan saw me staring at my phone in a daze and proactively asked, "What's wrong?" I handed the screen to him. After reading it, Ethan's expression turned stern, and he directly sent a voice message to Ryan. "Nina is your sister-in-law from now on, don't trouble her." His low tone revealed displeasure. Ryan didn't notice and continued to shout recklessly. "Brother, stop it, I know you're cooperating with Nina's act. She loves me to death, how could she turn around and marry someone else? You don't need to speak for her, I'll coax her properly tomorrow." Ethan's eyes grew increasingly angry, his thin lips pressed into a straight line. He looked like a storm was brewing. "Does my wife need you to coax her?" Thinking that Ethan would more or less mind what happened between his brother and me, I turned my head away sheepishly. However, he just sighed lightly. "Nina, I've wronged you." He turned to instruct his assistant to stop Ryan's credit card. Ding, I received a text message notification. Ethan transferred a large sum of money to me. After handling the company's tricky matters, Charles and Grace urged Ethan and me to go on our honeymoon. Across the Pacific Ocean, the small town in the southern hemisphere was in summer, with plenty of sunshine. Ethan was meticulous and considerate. We traveled and enjoyed the scenery, getting along harmoniously, and our relationship quickly warmed up. One day, while Ethan was in a cross-border meeting, I went to the mall alone to select a wedding ring. The previous ring size didn't fit Ethan well. I planned to give him a surprise. While I was choosing, a man and a woman walked into the jewelry store. The man was pushing a shopping cart filled with baby products. The woman sweetly leaned on the man's shoulder. Ryan recognized me at the counter. He angrily stepped forward and pushed me hard. "Nina, how dare you follow me? I lost my balance and fell directly to the ground. Celine gently stroked her belly, her eyes full of pride. "Are you okay, Sister Nina? I'm pregnant now and can't bend down easily. Can you stand up by yourself?" A kind store clerk helped me up. Ryan pulled off the pendant from his chest and questioned me. "Did you install a tracker in it?" That was the blessed jade I had devoutly prayed for and given to him to ward off disasters and protect his life. I reached out to take it back. "If you don't want it, give it back to me." Ryan smirked triumphantly. The moment my fingertips touched it, he smashed it heavily on the ground. The fine jade shattered into pieces instantly, and there was no sign of a tracker. Even though I had let go of my feelings for Ryan, I was still somewhat stunned when my past sincerity was trampled upon. Seeing my eyes turn red, Ryan panicked. "It's just a piece of jade, I'll compensate you for it." He glanced at the high-end jewelry in the display case. "I'll give you this set." "No, I'll buy the whole store for you, okay?" Celine bit her lip jealously. I couldn't bear it anymore and pointed at the door, shouting at them, "Get out." Ryan's face turned pale. Celine tugged at his sleeve, reminding him, "Brother Ryan, we should go for the prenatal checkup." Before leaving, Ryan said, "Nina, don't throw a tantrum. At worst, I'll come back earlier to marry you." I limped back home. On the way, Celine kept sending me messages. "Sister Nina, don't blame Brother Ryan. I said the air here is good, so he insisted on bringing me here to recuperate. Have you been to the nearby Lover's Lake? I heard that if couples check in together, they will be happy forever. I wonder if it works if you go alone." As soon as I entered the door, Ethan was waiting for me. His gaze fixed on my knee. "How did you get injured?" After all, Ryan is Ethan's biological brother, and I didn't want to put him in a difficult position. I lied that I accidentally fell and handed him the gift I bought for him. Ethan didn't say much and bent down to treat my wound. The next day, I found the pieced-together broken jade on the bedside table. The TV was broadcasting news about a Chinese couple being deported for carrying prohibited items. Even though the photos were blurred, I could recognize that it was Ryan and Celine. I contacted Ethan, who was out buying breakfast. I noticed that he had changed his profile picture to a photo of us holding hands with wedding rings. "Is it okay to treat Ryan like this?" Ethan quickly replied, "As long as he's not dead, it's fine. I don't want our honeymoon to be disturbed." My heart skipped a beat. Indeed, being with the right person means never being wronged. After the honeymoon, I soon became pregnant. The whole family was very happy. Throughout the 10 months of pregnancy, Ethan took care of me meticulously. When our son was born, Ethan, who was usually calm and composed, rarely lost his composure. He bought properties and gave me high-end jewelry, repeatedly saying how hard I had worked. He was also extremely attentive in taking care of the child, almost doing everything himself. If the child had a fever or rash, he often noticed it earlier than the nanny. As the new year approached, the general manager of the overseas branch suddenly resigned, and Ethan needed to go on a business trip. He apologized to me, "Wife, I can't spend the new year with you." I waved my hand to indicate it was okay. "With Mom and Dad here, you can rest assured." After marriage, Charles and Grace, who already doted on me, treated me even more like their own daughter. Before I even returned to the Fu family, they had already started buying the ingredients I loved to eat. On New Year's Eve, we were having our reunion dinner when Ryan suddenly returned with a baby, looking travel-worn. "Mom, Dad, long time no see. I brought the eldest grandson of the Fu family back to see you." When Charles saw the baby in the swaddle, his face turned red with anger. Where did this bastard come from, daring to claim to be part of the Fu family? Ryan proudly said, "Celine gave birth to him for me. Mom, look how cute he is." Seeing Ryan approaching with the child, Grace looked disgusted. "Go away, I don't recognize such a child of unknown origin." After being rejected twice, Ryan's face turned ugly. He finally noticed me at the table and immediately flew into a rage. "Nina, did you speak ill of me in front of my parents?" I ignored him and silently ate the food Grace served me. Grace came to my defense. "Ryan, you're too presumptuous, daring to bully Nina in front of me." For the past 6 months, you haven't even called to ask about us. It's Nina who has been by our side, caring for us. I don't have an ungrateful son like you." Ryan realized he had misunderstood me, and his expression softened. He touched his nose awkwardly and said, "Taking care of parents-in-law is her duty, what's there to praise?" Seeing that he showed no remorse, Charles was furious. "Get out of here." Ryan retorted, "I don't even want to stay." His shout scared both the baby in his arms and my son in the cradle beside me, making them cry. Hearing the two cries, Ryan was stunned. He looked at Andy in the cradle, who resembled Ethan, and asked in a panic, "Nina, whose child is this? You said you married my brother, that was a lie, right?" Grace gave Ryan an irritated look. "What lie? Andy is Nina and your brother's child, what are you stunned for?" Ryan's expression shattered instantly, he gave me an incredulous look and left with the child without looking back. That night, I received a message from Ryan. "Nina, my mom was lying to me today, right? You take care of my brother's child every day, you must be envious, right? As long as you recognize Kevin as your own son, I can marry you." I replied, ? I didn't expect that after so long, Ryan still thought I was infatuated with him. Ryan continued, "Are you jealous? I can also consider giving you a chance to be a mother." I was too lazy to entanglement with him anymore and directly blocked him. I guess Ryan must be short of money. He has always been proud and wouldn't easily bow his head, so he suddenly came back with the child. He privately approached me, just hoping that I could say some good words in front of Charles and Grace. I'm not that kind-hearted. Let him struggle outside. I'd like to see how a young master who is used to spending lavishly can afford to raise a child. After I blocked him, Ryan didn't contact me again. In his view, the always humble me daring to refuse his charity was like slapping his face. He must still be sulking, waiting for me to take the initiative to coax him. Unfortunately, I had long forgotten about this trivial matter. With children, my relationship with Ethan steadily improved. When our eldest was over a year old, I became pregnant again. This time, I gave birth to a little princess. The whole family was overjoyed and immediately decided to hold a luxurious full-month banquet. On the day of the banquet, all the city's celebrities came. Everyone praised Ethan for being blessed to have married a good wife who could handle both career and family. Ethan, who usually doesn't smile easily, was now holding me and smiling from ear to ear. Under the grand introduction of grandparents, our daughter was about to make her debut when a woman holding a child suddenly barged in. In front of everyone, she encouraged the child to step forward. "Kevin, quickly call Grandpa and Grandma." After several years, Celine looked haggard and unrecognizable. Her figure was out of shape, and there were several more wrinkles on her face. In contrast, without the troubles brought by Ryan, I was in much better condition than before. Charles's face was livid, and he called security to take her away. Celine looked pitiful and knelt on the ground with a thud, refusing to get up. The confused guests began to whisper. Ethan's face showed displeasure, and he was about to explode. I stopped him and directly projected Celine's provocative chat records and Facebook posts onto the public screen. Soon, curses erupted from below. Shameless mistress, daring to come to the door to claim kinship. Ryan is really blind to find such a low-class woman. The audience threw melon rinds and fruit peels at her. Celine's face turned red and white alternately. But since she had already knelt, she was determined not to give up until she achieved her goal, so she could only grit her teeth and endure silently. Ryan then also arrived at the banquet hall. Seeing Ryan, Celine cried, "Ryan, Kevin is about to start kindergarten, I had no choice." Ryan helped her up with eyes full of heartache. "Celine, it's my willfulness that has wronged you." He took a deep breath and solemnly said to Charles and Grace, "Mom, Dad, eloping was my fault, but Celine and the child are innocent, I hope you won't take it out on them." Then Ryan slowly walked towards me and compromised, "Nina, you win. For the sake of you taking care of my parents, I can also have a child with you. When shall we go to register our marriage?" His tone was extremely reluctant and helpless, as if he had suffered great humiliation. Grace was full of astonishment. Charles was trembling with anger. "You unfilial son, what nonsense are you talking?" The guests burst into laughter. Ryan was puzzled. "I'm willing to marry Nina, you can restore my credit card," I said while holding my daughter. "Sorry, your sister-in-law has just finished her postpartum period, I politely decline." Ryan warned me, "Nina, using the same trick twice isn't fresh anymore, there's a limit to throwing tantrums." Ethan asked with a gloomy face, "Is that so, little brother?" The next moment, I was enveloped in Ethan's warm embrace. He gently kissed my hair, leaving his unique mark by my ear. It was like a blow to the head. Ryan was stunned for a few seconds before finally coming to his senses. He held his head and shouted frantically, "Nina is my fiancée." Ethan sneered, "She is now my wife. If you don't cherish her, naturally, someone else will." Ryan didn't dare to confront his brother, so he turned to me and said viciously, "Nina, you should have waited for me to come back instead of seducing my brother." Ethan corrected him, "Nina did nothing wrong, I was the one who took the initiative." Ryan stepped back in disbelief. I retorted to Ryan, "You publicly abandoned me for another woman, how dare you ask me to wait for you? How many 3 years are there in life? If you never came back, would I have to wait for you forever? But you love me, you said you couldn't live without me. How could you bear to marry someone else?" Ryan's voice trembled slightly, almost imperceptibly. I said indifferently, "Little brother-in-law, you've overstepped." Ryan couldn't accept this fact. To him, my letting go was rarer than the end of the world. Seeing the situation was not right, Celine stepped forward to pull Ryan. Ryan suddenly shook off her hand and glared at her angrily, "It's all your fault, if you hadn't stayed abroad for so long, how could Nina choose someone else?" Celine felt extremely wronged, and tears streamed down her face. She wanted to lead the child away. But Kevin shook his head desperately, lying on the ground crying and making a scene. "I don't want to go, you said if I called Grandpa and Grandma, I could get Ultraman. I want Ultraman." In the end, Celine had to forcibly carry the child away. Ryan claimed he would cut off contact with Celine. Only then did Charles and Grace let him enter the house. The bombshell news that I was with Ethan made Ryan depressed for several days. Until one day when no one was around, he looked at me with a pained gaze. "Nina, even if you're angry with me, there's no need to be impulsive. You have no feelings for my brother, yet you really went through with it and gave him 2 children. A dog can't spit out ivory." I directly slapped him, "If you have the guts, say that in front of your brother." He covered his face and coughed unnaturally. "We both have children, let's call it even. I don't mind, once you're no longer angry, divorce my brother, and I'm willing to marry you. Sometimes, I really want to open Ryan's head to see if it's filled with excrement." "You really think you're gold that everyone loves, what about Celine?" Ryan didn't catch my sarcasm. He assured me, "I only feel guilty towards her, no romantic feelings. It was because I made her accompany me in drinking, which harmed her health, otherwise, I wouldn't have cared about her." I neither agreed nor disagreed, directly brushing aside the hair covering my neck, revealing ambiguous red marks. "Unfortunately, I really like your brother." Ryan's pupils shook, and a bitter smile appeared on his lips. "Then I'm willing to wait for you to change your mind." I didn't take his words to heart. That night, Celine called Ryan. "Ryan, Kevin has a high fever, but he's allergic to the fever medicine, I'm so scared." After hearing this, Ryan left the Fu residence anxiously. Before leaving, he glanced at me guiltily. "Kevin is my flesh and blood after all, I can't ignore him." Charles and Grace were so angry that they cursed loudly, saying they would no longer recognize Ryan as their son. Ryan also wisely didn't come back again. 2 months later, our son Andy reached the age to attend kindergarten. Coincidentally, Celine and Ryan's son Kevin was in the same school as Andy. Worried about accidents, I specifically instructed the principal to assign the 2 children to different classes. One afternoon, the class teacher suddenly called to inform me that Andy had injured another child while playing, causing bleeding. When I arrived at the kindergarten, Celine was holding Kevin, crying pitifully. The wound on Kevin's forehead was untreated and exposed to the air. I frowned. Let's take the child to the hospital first. Celine emotionally slapped my hand away. Nina, I know you hate me, but I didn't expect you to instigate your child to bully Kevin. You must give me an explanation for today's incident. Hearing this, Andy pouted aggrievedly, clutching my clothes and explaining, Mom, I didn't do anything wrong, he bumped into it himself. Andy has always been sensible and would never hit anyone. Moreover, Kevin is older and half a head taller than Andy, it's unlikely he couldn't fight back. But Kevin cried loudly, Andy is lying, he did hit me. I requested to check the surveillance. The class teacher awkwardly said that the incident happened in a blind spot of the surveillance, and the situation at that time couldn't be confirmed. Celine, however, believed that we were colluding to protect Andy and clamored to sue everyone. Ryan hurried over. He immediately blamed Celine, aren't you embarrassed enough from last time? I said I would find a way for the child to be recognized by the family, you don't need to worry about it. No wonder he was unwilling to take the child to the hospital, it turns out he had other plans. Even after being exposed by Ryan, Celine was not embarrassed. She directly threatened me, Nina, you'd better take Kevin back to the Fu family to be recognized, or I'll ruin your son's reputation. Ryan was displeased and about to lose his temper when Kevin suddenly snuggled into his arms and whined, Dad, it hurts so much. A flash of heartache appeared in Ryan's eyes. He hesitated for a moment and walked up to me. Nina, unlike Andy, who has so many people to care for him, Kevin only has his parents. I'm not asking you to do anything, just apologize on behalf of Andy, and we'll let this go. I said coldly, in your dreams. Ryan frowned. He said, why are you being so aggressive? Wouldn't it be better for both sides to take a step back? I said, apologizing means admitting that Andy was wrong, how will others view my son in the future? The school has no evidence, but I do. The pendant Andy often wears since starting school has a monitoring function. I directly played the video from that time. Kevin was holding on to Andy's sleeve, deliberately hitting his own forehead with a stone, and then crying loudly to attract the teacher's attention. Everyone present looked at each other. Seeing the situation was not good, Kevin pretended to faint. Although we could tell he was acting, to be safe, we still took him to the hospital. Fortunately, Kevin was fine. Without adult guidance, it's hard for a 3-year-old child to frame someone like this. Seeing Ryan silent, Celine's face turned pale. She weakly defended herself, I did this only so that the child could be recognized by the ancestors and receive better care. Ethan, who arrived in time, raised the report in his hand. Miss Celine has a low character and is first class at lying. Ethan had the doctor add a paternity test to Kevin's physical examination. The results showed that Kevin and Ryan had no blood relationship at all. Ryan's hand holding the report shook like a sieve. He was furious and slapped Celine hard. You despicable woman, how dare you deceive me? Ryan was still not satisfied. In front of the child, he punched and kicked Celine. It's all because of you that I eloped, missed the woman I love, and now I can't go home, and you still want me to raise your bastard. Celine was beaten black and blue. She said resentfully, it's because your sperm is too inferior, otherwise, I would have gotten pregnant long ago. Ryan was enraged and hit her even harder. It is said that Celine was beaten so badly that she couldn't get out of bed for a week. Kevin also dropped out of school because of this. Ryan clung to me like a plaster. I didn't want to have anything to do with him anymore and treated him coldly and distantly. I focused on living my own little life with Ethan. When Ethan was not busy, he often created small surprises for me, sometimes arranging candlelight dinners, sometimes taking me to watch fireworks. After 3 years of marriage, we were still as sweet as when we first got married. My differential treatment made Ryan very depressed. He squatted in the company lobby all day. When he saw me, he eagerly rushed over, holding a familiar jade pendant in his hand. Nina, look, isn't this jade exactly the same as the one that was broken before? I pushed his hand away and said coldly, little brother-in-law, don't delay my work. The receptionist stopped me. "Boss, someone sent you a bouquet of flowers. Red tulips, symbolizing passionate and undying love." I held the flowers Ethan sent with a sweet smile. This scene deeply hurt Ryan, and his face was full of pain. "A cheap bouquet can make you smile, but why don't you appreciate the jade pendant I obtained by kowtowing from the foot of the mountain to the top?" I glanced at Ryan and said calmly, "The value of a gift depends on the giver." "You knew the value of the jade pendant, yet you didn't hesitate to smash it. You're not worthy of making me happy." Ryan couldn't save face. "I admit I went too far before, but I'm making up for it, and I even punished Celine for you. Isn't that enough to make you forgive me?" I immediately distanced myself. "I don't care about you and Celine at all. It was she who made you a cuckold and angered you. Don't use me as an excuse for hitting a woman. I don't care for your compensation. Please stay away from me and don't disturb our family's happy life." Ryan suddenly lost his composure. He shouted hoarsely, "What exactly makes my brother worthy of your devotion? He's rigid and doesn't understand romance. Whatever he can do, I can do too." I interrupted him directly, "He's completely the opposite of you. I love him very much, and we're already married." Ryan didn't think much of it. "So what if you're married? You can get divorced." I was annoyed by him to the point of headache. Ryan continued, "As long as you agree, we can have a grander wedding than before, and I'll treat you better than ever." He became more and more excited as he spoke. He didn't notice Ethan was walking towards him. "Ryan, are you trying to steal my girl?" Ethan's face was cold, his eyes flashing with coldness. The natural blood suppression made Ryan turn into a quail in an instant. He stammered and couldn't utter a complete sentence. "No, no." The next second, Ethan's fist landed on Ryan's face. "Do you want to make Nina lose face again?" Ryan didn't dare to fight back or even make a sound, he could only grit his teeth and endure. Ethan didn't hold back, hitting hard, and in a few punches, he knocked Ryan to the ground. He pointed at Ryan's bleeding mouth and warned, "If you pester Nina again, don't blame me for disregarding brotherly affection." I held Ethan's hand. "Hubby, stop fighting." Seeing me intervene, Ryan's eyes lit up with hope. "I knew you still care about me." But I was only holding Ethan's hand, checking it with concern. "Is your hand okay? Does it hurt?" Ethan's contemptuous gaze met Ryan's hesitant expression, dealing a heavy blow to Ryan's confidence. He deflated like a balloon and left dejectedly. Ryan was demoralized and spent his days getting drunk in bars. His credit card was stopped, and his past savings were exhausted. Ryan had to rely on his reputation to get credit and barely hold on. His existence made the Fu family a laughingstock. Charles and Grace had long been utterly disappointed in this son and soon announced to the public that he was expelled from the family. All the bars in the city blacklisted Ryan and demanded he settle his bills. With no other choice, Ryan had to work 3 jobs a day to pay off his debts. His plight did not arouse sympathy from his family. Grace said wisely, "Fortunately, we kicked this prodigal son out early. If he were still at home, the 2 little ones would be led astray." I covered my mouth and smiled, with so many people caring and loving them, the children won't go astray. One day, the nanny took my daughter out to bask in the sun and didn't return for a long time. When we realized something was wrong, my daughter had already disappeared. The whole family was anxiously searching when I suddenly received a message from an unknown number, "If you want your daughter to live, come alone to the dock warehouse." When I arrived at the dock, Celine was pinching my crying daughter Lily. Behind her was the turbulent river. My heart clenched tightly. I raised my hands high and said sincerely, "Calm down, put the child down, we can talk things out. Whether you want money or my life, we can discuss it." Celine sneered continuously, "Nina, I didn't expect you to bow to me one day." Afraid of provoking her, I lowered my stance and listened quietly. Celine's gaze was venomous. Clearly, Ryan's entire heart was tied to me. I was so close to becoming the Fu family's daughter-in-law, and my son would have been the young master of the Fu family. "Why did you ruin my happiness?" Celine took another step closer to the river. "If you want to save your daughter, kneel on the ground and crawl 3 laps while barking like a dog." I knew I couldn't reason with a madwoman. While counting down the time for the rescue to begin, I prepared to obediently do as she said. Ryan suddenly appeared out of nowhere. With lightning speed, he pounced on Celine, forcing her to let go. I took the opportunity to grab Lily and move away from them. Celine's face twisted with anger. She pulled out a dagger hidden in her boot and stabbed Ryan's thigh viciously. Ryan soon lost too much blood and had no strength to fight back, but he still held on to Celine tightly. Weakly, he shouted at me, "Don't worry about me, run away quickly." Celine's eyes were bloodshot, like a demon crawling out of hell. "What kind of spell did Nina cast on you to make you willing to die for her?" To vent her anger, she stabbed several more times. "Mom, what are you doing?" A tender child's voice stopped Celine's actions. Celine looked up in shock and met Kevin's innocent gaze. The police seized the opportunity to kick away the dagger in her hand and subdued her. Ryan was covered in blood. Lying on the stretcher, he looked at me affectionately and asked, "Are you okay?" Seeing me shake my head, he finally passed out with relief. Ethan frowned, clearly displeased with his brother's reckless heroism. Ryan's sudden appearance with Kevin disrupted the rescue rhythm, almost causing the operation to fail, and he himself was injured as a result. Before being taken away, Celine kept comforting Kevin. "Kevin, don't be afraid, Mom was just playing a game." She reached out to rub the child's head, but Kevin immediately hid behind the police in fear. Celine dropped her hand disappointedly, her face full of regret. "I said from the side, I've never targeted you. But there's a saying, those who do evil will meet their own downfall." Celine smiled self-mockingly. "Nina, I'm not as good as you at judging people, I mistook trash for treasure." What awaited her was years of imprisonment. Ryan injured his leg and could only spend his life in a wheelchair. Unable to accept the reality, he irritably drove away all visitors. Helpless, relatives and friends had to ask me to visit him. Ryan's gloomy face finally brightened. "Nina, I thought you wouldn't come." I explained, "I'm just here on behalf of the family to care for you, there's no personal motive." Ryan couldn't hide his disappointment. "Do you have to be so heartless to me?" I sighed. "A broken mirror is hard to mend, ever since you decided to elope, it was impossible for us." I placed the fruit basket. "Take good care of yourself and cheer up." Ryan's eyes turned red. He grabbed my hand, trying to capture the past affection in my eyes. "If I hadn't sympathized with Celine back then and married you instead, would we be very happy now?" I calmly broke free from his grip. "There are no ifs, I'm doing very well now." "Ryan, look forward." I left without looking back. On our 5th wedding anniversary, Ethan and I revisited the small town where we went for our honeymoon. A new plank road was built by Lover's Lake. By telling the staff a love story, one could exchange it for a concentric lock. Ethan told an unknown story. When he was 10, he found a stray cat at school, and there was another girl feeding it at the same time. At 20, he accompanied his parents to visit friends. At that family's home, he saw the girl playing with the long-lost cat. Her smile was innocent, shining into his heart like sunlight. His parents told him that in the future, he would marry into that family. That was the first time he didn't resist the family marriage arrangement, instead, he secretly looked forward to it. Unfortunately, his younger brother was recently pursuing the girl, and she agreed. At 25, close to the wedding date, the girl's parents passed away. She wore white clothes and held her head high amidst the whispers. He felt very sorry for her but had no standing to hug her, only able to comfort her with gentle words. Ethan paused. "I thought I could only silently wish you well for the rest of my life, perhaps God heard my prayers and allowed me to hold your hand." On the day his brother eloped, hearing the hint in the girl's words, he was so happy he almost went crazy. This time, he bravely became the knight who saved the princess and would never let go again. Ethan repeated the wedding vows from that time. "Nina, in this life, I will love you, respect you, take care of you, accept you, and remain faithful." I thought it was love that arose unknowingly and deepened, I didn't expect our bond to be so profound. I shed tears of happiness and hung the concentric lock with Ethan by Lover's Lake. We will support each other through thick and thin, unwavering in this life.